Hello, it's me, a cat. I am very kitty and very catty. And I was going around the Warhammer Fantasy world and I had a camera with me and I decided to take some pictures and I was also going on tour and um I went around for a while and I figured I would just share it with you guys some of the stuff I saw. Oh, and also I'm rating each faction based on a lot of things like how nice they were to me, if they were fun to be around, stuff like that. And there was also how lefty they were because I was constantly trying to recruit for the Communist Cat Party, and some people were very receptive to that, and other people were trying to hit me with axes. And this is me, your fearless leader. Don't you like my flag? You should all hang up this flag in your homes, and then make sure that you contribute 7,421 seconds of your time and also maybe dollars to the cause. That would be good, don't you think? Let's raid some Warhammer factions. And this is also me. I took a picture while I was in the Empire and they gave me a lot of cool stuff. And I was walking around like this, and apparently that wasn't the right thing to do because apparently that upsets certain people. Anyway, let's get started. Well, first off, I'm going to just say that these are some honorable mentions. I basically just like stopped very briefly in Estilla, the Border Princes, and Tila. I just sort of like wandered in real quick, was like, hello, is this place a swamp? I hear it is a swamp. And then they said, this is no swamp. What are you doing here? And I was like, you sound like a Bretonian. And then I left and I went somewhere place else. Chaos. So I went to the Chaos Waste and I landed headfirst because I shot myself out of a rocket while I was in their space. And I was like above space and I decided to shoot myself down to the rocket. I landed and there was a lot of sticky sand and stuff like that. And I was wandering around and I was like looking at various different like chaos tribes and stuff like that. And they worship these four gods. And I was like, well, you guys should worship cats instead. And they were like, no, and they didn't want to worship cats. And although they had a certain anarchist flair going on, and I thought that was kind of cool, um, well, they were just kind of lame and evil, and they kept trying to like cut me, and they said, "I will offer your skull to the skull throne," and I was like, "No." And then I headbutted him, and he died, and that made the rest of his guys really upset. One of them said that you should become the Corn leader, and I said, "How about you join the Communist Cat Party?" And they're like, "What's a communist?" And then I was like, "Oh well, you're just I'm just not gonna get anywhere with you guys, huh?" So then I left, but before I left, I ran into this guy. I asked him for directions. As you can see in the chaos race, it is very red. I asked him for directions, and he was like, "For the right, father. I love plagues, but if you go south, you'll probably get to where you're trying to go." So at least there was one nice guy, and then he went and he said that he was going to go spread breathable Ebola onto people, and I was like, "Oh, is that your hobby?" And he said, "I love this hobby." And I said, "Well, that's very good. I'm glad you love this hobby." But I wasn't really digging their gods or like the fact that they were all evil and like trying to kill people. I'm all about helping people and using cool guns. And none of these guys had guns. There were these guys called Chaos Dwarves, but I did not see them. So then I met the Beastmen, and they kind of smelled bad, and they kept yelling, and they also worship these big, smelly chaos guys. And I was like, hey, you should not do that. Instead, you should worship cats, and you should all work together and become my friends. And they kept going, "Roar!" And I was like, I'm not really gonna make much progress here either. Um, yeah, and they didn't really have a society either. I tend to like society. I like having toilets. I like having running water. I like having guns. I like having cake. Cake is good. These guys mostly just ate like raw meat, and there was a lot of like peeing on things, and there was like there was like a lot of smells that I wasn't really fond of. Um, However, I did make this sketch of this big guy here, and I mean, he looks kind of cool, right? I mean, he looks like he would be a lot of fun to ride if he wasn't so spiky, but he was also really spiky. And I don't know, man, they just like kept doing the same thing, like blood god, and I was like really just not feeling it. So I just decided to keep moving on. That's why they're at number 18. Not that much fun. The Dark Elves. So after that, I decided to teleport, and because you can't read behind my head, that was they kept laughing maniacally but wouldn't tell me what the joke was. And yeah, I mean, it would be nice if they told me what the joke was, but they just did not want to tell me what the joke was for some reason. So instead, I was like, oh, okay. And then they were like luring me into places like, we will enslave you. And I'm like, I don't want to be enslaved. And they're like, well, we're going to do it. And I was like, no. And then they tried to pull a collar on me, and that didn't work. So then, well, I may have accidentally sunk one of their ships, and there was a lot of people swimming in the water, and then there was these weird tentacle things grabbing people and pulling them down, and then eating them. And I guess yeah, I just wasn't really welcome there after that. However, there were these really pretty but kind of scary ladies, and they were wearing like not a lot of clothes, but they had knives, and they were like, "Hey, want to see a knife trick?" And I was like, "Sure." And then they started showing me a knife trick, so I thought that was pretty cool. And they also had these fun spiky headdresses. And I was like, wow, that is a fun headdress. Could I get one? And they were like, can you become a daughter of Cain? And I said, probably not. So then they were like, well, and then probably not. And then they were like kind of reveling in the ship sinking, going, yay, yay, ritual evil. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, do you serve a blood god? Would you like to serve a kitty cat? And they were like, we don't really want to serve a kitty cat, and we do kind of serve a murder god. And I was like, lots of murder gods in this realm. And they were like, yeah, it's kind of a theme. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not really digging that theme. So then I decided that I would not go to their theme party about murder. So then I kept going. I teleported away, and the last thing I heard was, I'll get you, from some guy with a sword. The Tomb Kings. Then I teleported to the Tomb Kings, well, not the Tomb Kings themselves. I teleported into the desert, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I really like deserts. And I was walking around, and there was a lot of skeletons, and then I stumbled across even more skeletons, and these skeletons said that they served somebody, and by said that, I mean they just had like swords and things, and were like very obviously like minions. And then I found this one Tomb King, and I said to him, hey, would you like to be my friend? And I made this picture for him, and he's like, do you think I deserve to own all this land? And then I said, well, I mean, I'm not really a fan of like the oppression you got going on around here. I do like your aesthetic, sir, but I am not really for all of the undead skeletons not getting equal pay. And he said, we don't pay them at all. And I said, that doesn't seem. So then I hung up a banner that was saying, "Stand up, all victims of oppression." And yeah, I didn't really get anybody because they were all undead. And I guess the undead ones that like can think are like like they're all like royal and stuff. So that wasn't working out very well. So then I was like, okay, I guess we'll just keep moving on. But yes, that's why these guys are at number 16. Number 15 was the Bretonians. The biggest problem I had with these guys is that they talked really funny, and the peasants, and they were all nobles and peasants who refused to throw bricks at nobles. Well, so I showed up, and I was like, okay, I do like me some crusades, in the sense that I like the themes. I don't like the murdering. I don't like the charging. But I was like, hey, maybe these guys can be encouraged to throw bricks at nobles, because nobles are bad. So then I got a bunch of bricks, and I put them in bags, and I gave them to the peasants, and I said, look here, peasants, would you like to throw bricks at the noble? And they were like, what? No, he on the land, and he protect me with the sword. And I said, okay, well, maybe you want to throw bricks at him, and anyway, and fight for equality on their cat. And yeah, they just weren't really having it. I don't know. It was kind of weird. So I ended up hanging out there for a little bit. Although they had really pretty horses, and they had really pretty like charging, and then they charged, and they were killing stuff. Like was that? And one noble Bretonian was like, "I will do you," and so we dueled, and I accidentally disarmed him, and then I cut off his arm, and I said, "Oh, don't worry, I can replace it." So then I touched his arm, and it became a tentacle, by accident, because I was thinking about octopuses. I shouldn't have been thinking about octopuses when I touched his arm, but I was. So then it turned into a tentacle, and he's like, "Oh my god, I am a monster!" And then he was like, I was like, no, we can fix this." But then he wouldn't let me touch him again. So then he ran away with a tentacle. I did get to see this really pretty painting though, so that's good. Unfortunately, after that, I ran into the woods around there. I was like, okay, I guess we'll go see these wood elf people. And then they were like, you shouldn't be able to find our hidden base. And I was like, but you're just in the trees. And I know trees, so I'm going to walk into the trees. And some of the living trees were really nice to me, and they patted me on the head and they gave me little scritches. So I was like, "Oh boy, maybe the elves will be nice." But no, they just tried to shoot at me, and then they said that I shouldn't be there, and I was like, "Oh well, it's kind of lame." But I did meet these two ladies who were very nice and cool, and they had like kind of this like sister thing going on, and they seemed really nice, and you can tell here that they had cool swords. So I was like, oh hey. And I do like the aesthetic of shooting at things with bows. I did briefly have some Glade Guard, and I used to like these guys more, but then they kind of went lower on my list over time. So that's why they're at number 14 and not higher on the list. Arabi. So Arabi is a place I thought I would like more because I used to really like going to previous times in the Middle East, and I like going to the Abbasid Caliphate, and I like going to the Umayyad Caliphate, and I liked talking to those people, and I really liked their culture and things like that, and I like learning about them. And I think the science is fun there, and I learned a lot about medicine while I was in Arabi, but the slavery thing was pretty not cool. And so I was like, "Hey, would you guys like to start a revolt?" And they were like, "No." And I was like, "Oh." So then I bought some slaves from them, and then I taught those slaves how to stand up to oppression. And then they became my friends. But for some reason, they said that I was a magic cat and they would follow me to the ends of the earth. So instead of liberating them, I now just have 50 Arabi dudes. And well, they're not all dudes, some of them are ladies, following me around, and they like using spears and bows. So that's pretty cool. One of them tied a turban for me, and that was pretty nice. We also went to this big marketplace, and that was a lot of fun. I think I had one too many dudes following me though, because we were kind of crowding the streets a little bit. But you see, they have really nice carpets. So I did buy some carpets, and I found out how to make them flying carpets from a mage. So I made them flying carpets, and then me and my friends, we were flying around on these carpets. So I was really into that. It was really fun, and we had gin. We not like the drink gin, but like Jinn, like the spirits. We met some of them, and they were a lot of fun to talk to. Um, yeah, I would go back there. I wish there was less slavery, and I am trying to figure out if there's a way to start a larger rebellion and a larger revolt, and then we can all sing together, "Stand up, all victims of oppression." And I think that would be really cool. But yeah, I did manage to establish a small enclave where they think that I am some sort of magical cat god. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's why these are the guys are number 13. Orcs and goblins are fun. So this is a shaman I met, and he was really nice, kind of weird, kind of like, oh, it's very spooky. But he let me fly a kite that was made out of goblins. So I was flying the kite, and he was like, "Oh my god, I'm flying!" And that was kind of neat. And I really enjoy the kind of silliness that these guys had going on, and then that was a lot of fun. However, I will separate the second column because there was one I had way more fun with, and that's the night goblins. These guys I visited separately from the other orcs and goblins, because they had a big tribe and they were going to war. But these guys were just hanging out underground, and they were making stuff with fungus. And I love fungus. I love growing fungus. I love studying fungus and things like that. So I went into their caves and I was like, "Hey, can I learn more about your fungus?" And at first they were like, "I was gonna stab you," but then I like gave them some mushrooms they liked, and they were like, "Okay, never mind, we can be friends." And so they were showing me all kinds of stuff. They were showing me how to make fungus beer. I don't drink though, but they were showing me how to make fungus beer, and they were showing me how to make potions. But most importantly, they took me to the squig patch, and there was all kinds of weird squigs like this. And one of them, I got one of my friends to draw the squig for me, and I really like this squig, so I was petting it, and now I have some squigs. And these guys who fly on my carpets with me, some of them have squigs now, and they're learning how to train them. And it's a lot of fun to train squigs. And they are very scary with their big teeth. However, if they love you, they won't bite you, but they will bite other people. They do seem to like to try and bite goblins more, though. I don't know why that is. Kind of weird. But yeah, no, these night goblins are really cool. And back when I used to play on the tabletop, I actually had, because I bought multiple sets of the Battle for Skull Pass, I had the big night goblin army. And it was a night goblin army that also had some spider riders in it, but like it was mostly night goblins, and I always liked the night goblins more than regular goblins. And I had a bunch of fanatics, and they would spin around, and that was all fun. After that, we went to Marienburg, and there was a lot of like fun stuff because I have so much gold that I got from robbing kingdoms and stuff like that. And by robbing, I mean redistributing wealth to myself. I had a bunch of gold in my hat, so I went into Marienburg and I was like, "Hey, I want to check out a bunch of different things." So we kind of wandered around, and I met some guys from Nippon and some guys from Cathay, and I met some lady from Arabi again, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you have a bunch of flying carpet warriors." I was like, "Yeah, isn't that kind of cool?" And she's like, "Yeah." So then she's a friend of mine now, and she follows me around, and we sell things. So that's a lot of fun. I also managed to hire some a couple of big boys to follow me around, and they were dancing with their swords and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun, and I do enjoy like the kind of trade stuff, but it's also kind of a capitalist hellscape where everyone seemed to want to take a bribe every like 5 feet. And I kept having to give out gold coins to get like little bits of information and stuff like that. However, I did see these guys. I had bought a little pamphlet on them. These guys are buccaneers, and you can see that they have lost a lot of teeth and stuff like that. But they also wear these really nice yellow uniforms, and then you can also see that they have um these fishes, and they're called the murderers of Marienburg, and I thought that was pretty cool. They're like sell swords, so I gave them some money and followed them around for a little bit with my other guys, and they mostly just like did a lot of bad things. So then I had to punch one of them in the face, and then we had to escape from them. And I mean, I still have a pamphlet though. The pamphlet was cool. Didn't manage to start any communist cat um things though, so you know it was fun, but just wasn't as eventful as I wanted it to be. But that's why these guys are number 10. His love. These guys had fun hats, fun dances, but an awful lot of talk about chaos and how evil chaos is and how they want to stop chaos. They there was also this like czar lady that I got like to see like from a distance, and she did like a lot of ice magic, but we didn't stay there very long because my friends on the flying carpet said that it was really cold, and I said, well, we can put on more clothes, and they said, well, yeah, but like maybe we shouldn't just hang out here because they keep eyeballing us, and several of them have said that you're some kind of minion of the chaos gods, and I said, I am not a minion of the chaos gods. I am a minion of Catte. We did manage to get like a few people interested in the Communist Cat Party. However, apparently the Tsarina is like really popular, and so is the Orthodox Church there. And yeah, that was kind of weird. And something about like they thought we were gonna overthrow them, which yeah, we probably were. But yeah, no, didn't end up doing that. Instead, I ended up just like walking around and getting a fun hat. I do like their hats though. Hats are fun. So I went to the Ogre Kingdoms next, and I met this small tribe of ogres just calling themselves the Phase Biters. And I thought that was kind of a neat name. I taught them theory and about how like they should share their meats more equally, and they were really into it. They wanted to bite my friends though, and I didn't let them do that. And then one of them wanted to bite me, and they kept saying, "Well, he's gonna turn you into kitty cat stew." And I was like, no. And then some of the ogres wanted to help, but a lot of them wanted to eat me. So this ended up happening. I turned into a big dragon, and I set a lot of the ogres on fire with my breath, and I ate a couple of them, and they were screaming and saying, "No, please stop it, stop it!" And I was like, "Well, you're trying to eat me. I can't let you do that." So then I burnt a lot of them to death, and we may have set a bunch of fires, and then I had a couple of ogres recruit me, and they were like, "We like your theory." They kind of talked weird. They didn't really talk. It's like hard to do their accent, but a couple of them joined us, and now they're like some of our deeper singing voices in the Communist Cat Choir. It's really cool. But yeah, I unfortunately had to burn a lot of them, and a bunch of them died. However, I did at one time have a small ogre army, and I liked my little ogre army. It wasn't very big. I think it was like 24 ogres, something like that. No, maybe 30 actually, because they had a couple of different specialties. And I had a lot of fun playing them. I was never very good with them, but I had a lot of fun playing them, and I think like eating is a lot of fun. I just don't want to eat people. I mean, I did eat a couple of ogres, so yeah, man, that gave me bad gas too. Just like little toots. I wasn't thinking that my cat toots would be that bad, but they were kind of that bad. The vampire counts. These guys were a lot of fun in the sense that I I really like the bombastic nature of them, and I like wearing the capes and stuff like that. I told Manfred that maybe he should. Excuse me, I left something in my mouth. I I told him that he should maybe like try to become an electric count and stuff like that. He said he was a electric count of Stryland, and I'm like, I've met the electric count of Stryland. I don't think it's you. And yeah, that wasn't didn't go very well after that. He was like, "Wah, bah, 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 bah." Anyway, but they were a lot of fun, and I learned how to summon skeletons, and I like skeletons. It turns out you can make the skeletons dress up like communist revolutionaries, and it works very well. I did also meet this guy. He's a Strigoi. He has big claws, and he said that he was going to drink from their skulls. And I said, "Why are you going to drink from their skulls?" And he said, "Because they make a good cup, and I want to eat them." And I was like, "Oh, are you used to be Bretonian?" He's like, "Yes, but then they betrayed me." So I guess he's gonna go revenge on Bretonia, and I was like, that's good because those guys don't even want to throw bricks at nobles, and he's like, how could they not want to throw bricks at nobles? And that's when I taught him how to throw bricks really well. So yeah, I really like these guys. And unrelated, but I really just like kind of like the dark themes here, and I've always been a fan of undead and things like that. Skaven, very crowded streets, lots of drugs, but I bought some guys who now work for the party. So I was like, okay, so I hear that Skaven are always malevolent. Let's see if we can change that. So I bought this big machine, or well, I bought parts for the machine, then I built it myself. And it's a big machine that has a big lever in it. So what we did was I bought a bunch of these Skaven from these other Skaven, and then I started putting them in a machine, and I flipped the lever, and it turns out that I can turn Skaven good by making this machine. So then I flipped and I made a bunch of the Skaven good, and then I had a lot of fun with that. I used to have a small Skaven army, so I had a bunch of armies back in the day. But I really like the Skaven. I like their ingenuity, and there's something about like the kind of like comic but evil sense they got going on is a lot of fun to me. And here's me with two of our new comrades. I decided to strike kind of a silly pose, and we were building things underground. We actually had several hundred Skaven join the party, and then I flipped the switches on them, and they all became great benefactors of the great Communist Cat Party empire. And we will grow even further, and soon we will overwhelm the surface of this kind of bad world from below with all my Skaven friends. And I like them too because I like to pet rats, and I got to pet a lot of them, and they seemed really into it. So that was cool. And then I went to the lizard men. Had some fun moments, and they had fun monuments, and I went swimming with the skinks. These guys here, we just like mostly swam a lot, and they were telling me about how like you know the world was gonna end, and like how the lizard men knew like best and things like that. Neat stuff. And I like there's little skink friends a lot. That's why they are rated number 5. Number 4 is Catte. So I decided to go to Cafe, and like I met this dragon lady, and she was really pretty. I mean, look at her. She's really pretty. Apparently she's like their empress or something like that. And I told her, "Hey, maybe you could be a good communist leader." And she said that she was already a great leader and that she was a god and a bunch of other things basically. Or well, not a god, but like a godlike dragon. And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool and neat. Is it cool if I spread some flyers?" And she said that I was very cute. So then she patted my head and she let me spread some flyers. And I really like their kind of like it's very similar like East Asian aesthetic that I personally find very fun. And there were some terracotta soldiers and giant statues and stuff like that. And then they were fighting against chaos and had all kinds of cool outfits and costumes. And I was very into it. That's why these guys are rated number 4, the High Elves. So I really liked hanging out with these guys. These guys had really cool and fun buildings, and they had a lot of cool and fun armor. And I told a lot of them that in the future they could live under communist cat rule, and that they would have a big a big utopia, and they were like, oh hey, I would really like a big utopia, and you seem very magically strong, so maybe you can do it. So I got a few friends, and you can see here, kind of like out of picture frame, unfortunately, but there was a mage man that we talked to a lot of, and then there was this guy. He always had a cup of wine in his hand, and he was like, I believe in your communist utopia, and I said that's very good. And we got a few of their guys to follow us. They're shadow warriors, and they were very cool and fun, and I liked talking to them, and they all had a lot of fun hats and fun costumes, and they had really pretty gardens. So, I was into it. That's why these guys are rated number 3. Dwarves. So, okay, I was just making sure that the elf wouldn't get mad. So, dwarves were my second favorite, and they are always been my second favorite. Well, they used to actually be my most favorite. I used to have a really huge dwarf army, like a dwarf tabletop army that was 10,000 points total. And there's all kinds of things I loved about dwarves, and I love engineers, and I love the technology and stuff like that. And I felt really welcomed. I got to explore a lot of fun underground places. There were these huge monuments and things like that. And I made a lot of dwarvish friends. And I told them that when the world was going to end, I was going to teleport a bunch of them away to join me and the rest of my friends in our utopia. And they were like, oh, that's really cool. Thank you very much. And then they offered me ale. And then I said, do you have anything non alcoholic? And they seemed really distraught by that. But one of the dwarves actually did. He had this big cup of specially purified water that had like lemon and other stuff in it. It kind of is like lemonade. I was very glad to have it, and I made a lot of friends there. And dwarves, I really like their tough exterior. I like their big beards. I like all that different stuff. And also, when I was there, they let me fire a cannon. So I got to go onto like this range, and on the range they let me fire a cannon. So I fired several shots, and I hit the targets, and I was having so much fun. And then they told me that I could make a good honorable engineer one day, and I said that's weird. I thought you guys were really restrictive on that. And they were like, yeah, normally, but you're just such a cool cat. So then they scritched me and pet me, and I was like, yes. That's why they're number 2. Now you may be saying, no, wait a minute, who does that leave as number 1? Well, if you know anything about the kitty cat, you probably know what it is, but hey, it's all right. The Empire. The humans have a little bit of everything, and I met lots of fun people. I got a fun hat too. Unfortunately, I'm not wearing my fun hat right now. But yeah, the Empire is my favorite. I personally love the Holy Roman Empire from history, but I also just love the Empire because it has all kinds of diverse citizens. And Averland is one of my favorite parts of the Empire. I love going there. I love the black and yellow outfits. I love walking around. I love the faith. I love listening to them talk about their gods. Mermidia is probably one of my favorite gods in the Warhammer fantasy setting, but I really like Sigmar a lot as well. And I liked listening to all these guys and talk about their stuff. And there was lots of fun stuff to do in the Empire. And they also had fun guns. So we bought a bunch of cool guns. And I even learned about these things called the window tax riots. So then I went back in time and I got a bunch of these young Empire citizens to join me. And now they get to live with me in my cat utopia. And we're going to make an even better utopia. There's also this person here, How J. They drew this really, really nice picture of these Empire girls, and they had these really nice, very cute costumes, and I really enjoyed their costumes. And they were showing me how to fight with Zweihanders, and I was like, wow, this is so much fun. And then I paid, and I got to ride a griffin and stuff like that, and that was a lot of fun too. We also went to a lot of taverns, and like all the Empire people that were following me now, as well as my Arabi people and my dwarves and all of them, they all had fun in the taverns and were drinking a lot, and I got to hear a lot of fun drinking songs, and I got to dance around, and that was a lot of fun. And then I also got to meet this guy. This guy's name is Luther, and he is very scary apparently and very beloved, and he loves Sigmar, and I love Sigmar, so we got along really well. And I hugged him, and he said that it was the first time anyone had ever hugged him in a very long time. But yes, I really like the guns, faith, and steel approach that the Empire has going on, and I love their outfits. I love their costumes. I love the colorful nature of it, and I also love Karl Franz. I love standing up to insurmountable odds as just a regular old human. That's why they are my favorite faction in Warhammer Fantasy. Thank you very much for watching. I'm glad you hopefully enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you'll enjoy me talking about Warhammer factions more in the future. This is just a little bit of something fun I wanted to make. I just wanted to make a list of my favorite factions in Warhammer Fantasy and rate them the toppest highest. I'm also really glad that Catte has like armies and stuff now that you can see even if it's just in the Total War games, and I really hope that when the old world gets released we get some Catte models. And yes, thank you all very much for stopping by. And don't forget to become a member of the Communist Cat Party so that you can help support me going to different realms and stealing people and bringing them to the new realm. Thank you. Bye bye.